Joe Biden has signed an executive order. It's about time on border security, they say. And in his speech and in his presentation, it sounds like he'll be shutting the border down. Technically, that's true. So it's kind of hard to figure out how to word this. But the reality is it actually sets a threshold that now allows illegal immigration. You see, here's the thing. Crossing the border without using a port of entry is a crime. Joe Biden's executive order sounds like he's saying, we're going to get serious and shut this border down. What it actually says is, so long as the average is 2,500 per day, it is now legal. That's right. Without Congress, because he couldn't get it done. I need you all to understand where we are in this country right now. It is long past. When was the last time we declared a war? The president just does things. The president is now allowing illegal immigration. Joe Biden, according to the New York Post, is granting amnesty so far to 350,000 illegal immigrants. In Wisconsin, they are now filing charges against Trump lawyers once again. And it's going to keep happening. So we'll get into all those stories. Plus, we got the Hunter Biden laptop story. We got some interesting stuff. I don't know if it's big news, but AT&T and Verizon are down nationwide. It sounds like things are, a little bit unstable. Before we get started, head over to castbrew.com. Buy our coffee. We got Alex Stein's Primetime Grind. We got Ian's Graphene Dream. We're going to get that promo code for Ian's Graphene Dream soon. And then we're going to have a contest. I'm going to pit Alex Stein and Ian against each other and see which one will sell more coffee. But we'll get that up when we get that up. Right now, we're just goofing around. So if you want to support the show, you can go to Casper.com, buy our coffee. It's some of the best. Everybody loves Appalachian Nights. Honestly, it's my favorite. It wasn't our initial signature blend, but it sells so much, it's basically become that. Also, head over to Timcast.com, click Join Us, become a member to support our work directly, because without you as members, we cannot make this show. We cannot do the show. It's not possible without you guys as members. As members, you get access to our uncensored call-in show, which is Monday through Thursday at 10 p.m. You don't want to miss it. You as members actually call in and you're on the show talking to us. So if you want to get involved, join us, join the Discord server, timcast.com. But don't forget to also smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show right now everywhere. Copy and paste that URL, post it wherever you can. That really does help. Joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Dave Benner.
Hey, Tim. Hey, thanks for having me. I am the nemesis of neocons and a historian, and I contribute articles to the 10th Amendment Center and Mises Institute. And I've written 2 books about the founding period, one of which is Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism, which I am gifting to you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, wow. Yeah, slide it on over.
Yeah.
Excellent. That's actually really big. That's a thick book.
5 years in the making, man.
Wow. Right on. Cool. Well, we'll have to talk about that stuff. We got Phil hanging out.
Hello, everybody. My name is Phil Labonte. I'm the lead singer of the heavy metal band All That Remains. I'm an anti-communist and counter-revolutionary. How you doing, Hannah Claire?
I'm good. I need a better intro. You guys are putting me to shame tonight.
Well,
I'll train. I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for SCNR.com. That's Scanner News. Really grateful to be part of the team.
Let a
All
little
them
spice out.
at Timcast News. Shh, I'm ranting here. Hi, Serge.
Hey, what's up? Let's get started.
Here we go. Here's the big story. We had this from NBC News. Biden signs executive order drastically tightening border. I just can't. If we, my friends, Joe Biden's executive order doesn't tighten security. It actually codifies a limit to allow illegal immigration. Okay, here's how it works. You are not allowed to cross the U.S. border unless you go through a port of entry, and we track who you are and why you're coming here. We do this because there are terrorists and enemies of the state and adversarial nations and actors. And so we want to make sure cartels, drug dealers, people being trafficked aren't actually being brought across the border. Biden's executive order actually says it is now okay up to 2,500 people. The president is just doing things. Congress doesn't matter anymore. Electing Congress doesn't seem to matter anymore. And I'll tell you this, I am furious because look, all we ever seem to get is maybe 1 or 2 strongly worded letters from members of Congress. And I'm just outraged because where's number 3? If we can just get 1 more strongly worded letter, maybe Biden would finally stop violating the law and the Constitution, and maybe this country would get on track. I'm hoping number 3 will do it. But short of that, all we can do here is whinge on the internet and tell you once again that we've woken up. The Democrats have done something blatantly illegal. Nothing is being done about it. And now we're going to go to bed. And when we wake up tomorrow, it'll be the exact same.
Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day.
My
every
name's
day.
Bill Murray. I'm just not as funny.
I got to be honest, man. It gets harder and harder every morning. I'm not joking. The morning segment, I do the Tim Pool Daily Show, the podcast. And I wake up in the morning and I'm like, This is the same story from yesterday, just slight variation. Democrats do illegal thing. I don't know how much I can add to that. Hey guys, it's 10 a.m. The Democrats have done an illegal thing again, and there's no more context to add because I've said all the context. So have a nice day, and I'll see you at 1 p.m.
If you feel like really bashing your head against the wall, you could get on the internet and debate with people about whether or not he's actually doing an illegal thing, because there are plenty of people out there that unironically say, no, this is perfectly fine. This is good. This is the proper procedure. These are actually good. The charges are okay. You know, Ben would never do anything illegal. Man, what are you talking about? This is all straight up. Donald Trump's the most evil person. I mean, it is comical. It is the same stuff they were saying in 2016. And there are still people that have absolutely no attachment to reality.
Look, I think this is particularly...
And it's frustrating.
Yeah, it is frustrating. I think this is particularly egregious because the Biden administration, Biden came out there and was like, well, I was ready to secure our nation's borders, but congressional Republicans. And you want to be like, you made everything about Ukraine. You wouldn't get a border security bill through without funding Ukraine. Also, this actually does nothing.
Does anyone think
it does nothing?
Does anyone think that works, though? Do you think that works when he says that?
I don't think it works. I just think it's a reminder to the American people that Joe Biden lies all the time. He's constantly lying, and I think that's the effect. I think Democrats should be aware of this too, because what's interesting about this is that, if you're watching mainstream media coverage, they're like, well, he might face some backlash from people. Like, they're expecting a pro-immigration group to file a challenge to this in court, and that will be the thing. Like, people from the left, I don't even know how far left Biden is, but they're expecting there to be an attack from people that would otherwise be supporting him. And it's stupid to me because ultimately this is him trying to say at the, way past the 9th hour, at the 12th hour, hey, I took the border seriously and I wasn't the one who was able to do anything. So really we need Congress to take action. When Congress, we know, has tried to take action, maybe not enough, but it's just this weird shift and skirt that the Biden administration does always.
I just wonder how many, it's all about normies, right? So I just wonder how many normies are convinced by that. I mean,
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, regardless of your position on borders, and I imagine I have a different one than some of you here at this table, and that's fine.
So you're admitting you're wrong?
Yeah, I'm admitting I'm wrong.
All right.
But no, regardless, there's been a serious shift in kind of the Biden strategy, like you said, Hannah Claire, at the 9th hour. So I'm curious, do you guys think that this is more indicative of desperation than, say, agreeing to the CNN
This is not a shift in the 9th
debate?
hour. This is pretending to the public that there's a shift when his actual goal is to codify, to turn illegal immigration into legal immigration. So this is what we refer to as the Ellis Island strategy. This is what Chase Oliver and the Libertarian Party have advocated for. And there's a reason why we stopped doing it as long ago when we did. We have enemies of this country who have started attacking us. Here's an interesting story. Take a look. Did you guys know that there's a secret room in Grand Central Station?
Where?
The main switch that controls the trains is hidden in a secret room that doesn't have a direct access to. It's really amazing because we feared during World War II that someone would come into this country, one person could come in, and if they took a wrench and they stuck it in that machine, the entire train system shuts down, dramatically hindering the U.S. economy. So we used to have what was called the Ellis Island strategy. First, we didn't. At the end of 1800s, it was the states can take care of immigration. The federal government isn't involved. Yeah. Then we said, okay, we need to bring everyone to a central port of entry, figure out who they are and figure out if they're sick. We had a bunch of doctors and immigration specialists. People would come in. They'd check to make sure they weren't bringing diseases. And within a few hours, they'd say, okay, welcome to the United States. Have a good time. Eventually, the numbers started to overwhelm Ellis Island. And they said, we can't really do this anymore. There's way too many people. So we need a standardized and national legal process. Joe Biden is trying to bring back this. Anyone can come in and go anywhere they want. Anyone who's paid attention to the past 20 years knows this does not work. Anybody who advocates for this system, like this is why we're very critical of the Libertarian Party, doesn't pay attention to modern history at all. The best example, of course, being Sweden. Sweden brought in a bunch of Somalis in the 90s and then said, you can go wherever you want. What happened? They formed enclaves. They went to areas like Rinkeby, where this is a neighborhood in Rosengard. And Rosengard now is predominantly more Middle Eastern refugees, which creates an enclave where women are being forced to wear hijab. Then you have in Rinkeby, Somali refugees had children. Those kids grew up surrounded by Somalis. who don't actually, they did not integrate properly with Sweden. So they view the police as an external authoritarian force against them. They don't listen to them. They don't abide by those rules. And it started creating a bunch of gang violence to where a few years ago in Södertälje, a gang of people, Somali, in a vehicle, I think they were the children of Somali refugees, with a full auto machine gun unloaded onto a bank, just spraying into the building. They don't see themselves as part of this country. It's happened in the UK. It's happened across Europe. The reason why we don't just have open borders is because we want people who come here to be given an opportunity. That means we need to find out where the best economic opportunity is. And you don't just say, come on in and go wherever you want. You end up with enclaves, which isolate themselves and form states within states. You end up with pockets like in Minnesota, where they say they're there to represent Somali interests in the United States. You are creating external groups within the United States who act in defiance and counter to our wishes as a nation, which causes problems. What Joe Biden's doing with the executive order is saying, what we all knew, it's illegal to cross the border. Go to a port of entry, fill out the paperwork. Now he's saying, I'm going to shut this border down. Only 2,500 people are now allowed to cross the border every day. Which is, it's an amazing manipulation. It's an amazing manipulation. It is illegal now to murder. No, let's say this. Stealing from a bank is illegal. Imagine if the mayor of a city came out and said, we're going to crack down on these bank robberies. You know, this John Dillinger and, Babyface, whatever the guy's name was. What was that guy's name? I can't remember his name. And we're going to, if they rob two banks, we're going to stop them from robbing the third. Because what? You're basically saying they're allowed to rob banks now. That's what Biden's doing.
Yeah, it's very much not about actually stopping anything, but getting their way and looking like they were the ones to take action. That's what frustrates me about all of this messaging, because really Joe Biden created this problem. He's not solving it. And he's turning around and saying, actually, you guys didn't agree with me, give me what you want, and therefore you didn't offer a bipartisan solution. It's akin to a small child having a tantrum and still getting their way anyways. Like, I just think this is not of service to the American people, and it shows you how little Joe Biden takes this seriously. This whole proclamation comes like 2 days after the New York Post report. I don't know if you guys saw this, where they did this investigation into the asylum cases. There's like 340,000 that have gotten dismissed. Not meaning that the people who were claiming asylum are deported. They just no longer have any kind of formal contact with the government, but they're still in America. They're just sort of in a limbo position, making it, easier for them to live in between. And people say, oh, well, they can't get work permits. Like, they're here illegally.
That's not true. They're getting work permits.
Yeah, I know. This is the claim, though, because they're outside of the asylum. They're like, oh, well, now there's all kinds of... No, there's not. They're just here illegally doing the same thing as every other illegal immigrant. And this was something... It's essentially mass amnesty that the Biden administration has slipped by and is trying to ignore. Like, this is what's so frustrating, which is that the Biden administration caused this problem. Troy Niels had this statement today, Congressman Troy Niels from Texas, where he was like, all he had to do was leave what Trump had established in place and we would be okay. And instead, they made the
frustrating thing. The politicking that has gone on since the Trump administration, in the attempt to just signal that Trump was wrong. Consequences be damned. Reality be damned, right? All we have to do is negative Trump policy that will automatically be good. That is because almost the entirety of the Democrat Party is completely consumed by their ideology. You cannot believe that Donald Trump is actually like a Nazi, right? Like, you can't actually really believe that. They're insane people.
Take a look at the tweet from Jenny Terr. Migrants in any of the following categories are exempt from Biden's asylum restrictions: unaccompanied minors, those who claim credible fear, those who come from countries that won't accept deports like China, those with medical emergencies, and trafficking victims. Mexico doesn't accept deportees.
None of that stuff sounds unreasonable. I mean,
no. The issue is his executive action is an opportunity for him to go on TV and say the Republicans have blocked me, so I'll do it by executive order. I'm securing the border. And all of his ignorant and naive voter base, default liberals, go, oh, see, he's getting stuff done. And what they don't realize is everything he's doing emboldens illegal immigration.
Yeah. Well, the credible fear qualifier seems like it could be the most ambiguous thing of all time, right?
Of course.
Yes, intentionally.
Intentionally so, maybe.
Let's jump to this story. We have this from the New York Post. Senator demands Biden end covert mass amnesty by dismissing thousands of immigration cases. This was the big news, also by Jenny Tier. Republican Senator Josh Hawley is pressuring the Biden administration to end its practice of dismissing thousands of asylum cases, effectively giving migrants mass amnesty. So the Post reported 350,000 migrants were simply released. Their charges evaporated from the system, meaning they now live here with it's amnesty. It is the look. I'm sorry. There's no law anymore. Law and order has ceased to exist.
Really,
I want to stress this: 350,000 people are now living in the United States in limbo legal status. They do not face deportation at all. They cannot be deported. They have no cases against them. They also don't have, right now, most of them, Social Security numbers, tax ID numbers, or work permits. So what is this? It is legal limbo created by the Biden administration, and they are creating a second-class citizen base. These people are going to work under the table. They're not going to pay as many taxes because they're working under the table, and they're just going to live here forever. That's the Biden administration, and there's millions and millions of people more, and they're going to be dismissing many more of these cases.
I think the worst part is the fact that the Biden administration, and again, the Democrats, have been accusing anyone that would say, hey, look, we have to stop this. You know, the argument has always been, or has in the past 15, 20 years, has been, you're a bigot. It's not actually an argument about policy. It's a moral ad hominem attack that does no one any good. And it doesn't make for good policy either. So I don't know why you can't get a policy discussion well, I mean, actually, I do know why, because they don't want to have a policy discussion. But that is the case, and it's hard to deny that nowadays.
But I think we're good. I was worried for a little bit, but I think we're good now. The Post is reporting that Hawley sent a letter to Alejandro Mayorkas asking him to explain how they're tracking individuals after terminating their cases. Whew. I was concerned for a minute there. There was no strongly worded letter being sent out, but that's all I wanted. I just wanted to be able to shake my fist at the criminals that are ripping this country to shreds, just shaking my fist. And then I'll go back to sitting on my massage chair, eating wings and watching poker.
Well, Mayorkas is really good at being accountable. He's very honest. He always says, like, this is not true at all. This is a guy who the House impeached, remember? Then I just don't think anything's ever going to happen. I mean, if that was not symbolic of the Biden administration, that there is a crisis, the guy who is in charge of answering questions for this was impeached by at least half of Congress. Yeah. And then they're still like, we'll probably keep him in place. He seems pretty good to us.
This is something that people should need to acknowledge or should take notice of. It's exceedingly hard to end government programs, to fire people in government, to get rid of public sector unions, all this kind of stuff that's involved with the government, especially the feds. It's super hard to get rid of. That's why it's supposed to be a limited federal government that doesn't have a lot of powers. So that way, if they make something that's going to be impossible to get rid of, it is intended to have been arduous to create in the first place. And yes, there are some things that are difficult, and there is a lot of gridlock. I think we need more of it.
Gridlock is good.
Yeah. When they don't do anything, I like that.
Right. The only thing I don't really understand is why a lot of people that want strictly controlled borders want to just defer those powers to the federal monopoly. So the feds have a monopoly power on it. To me, it's like there'd be much stricter border controls if that's your kind of thing.
Because the feds demand
Abbott or Arizona that
it's because the Constitution mandates it.
It's because it's mandated.
Yeah.
We don't have a choice. If you
it's not it's not an enumerated power. The federal government doesn't have the authority to do that. They do have power over naturalization, but not to create a border.
I'm pretty sure the issue constitutionally between Texas and the federal government was that, and I think the Supreme Court ruled this, that it's not within the power of a state to deport.
They say that, and then Abbott claimed that there's a constitutional prohibition that allows him to exert that if there's an invasion taking place.
Right.
Whether it's an invasion, he's claiming that he has the ability and impetus to decide that.
And
as far as immigration itself, the first time the feds even claimed a monopoly on immigration authority was the 1875 Page Act.
Right.
We can going back and being like, look, you don't have this power is exceedingly unproductive.
But also
they have the guns.
Yeah, I don't disagree with
but think
that.
about what that means. If we defer to states for immigration, then Arizona, Nevada, Texas, but all these countries will build borders and set up checkpoints to keep people out from entering. And I'm talking about within the United States. Arizona especially, because California would instantly say anyone can come. And then what they'll do is they'll bring them all in, give them California IDs and say, now go off into the land and wherever you want to go. And then you're going to end up with physical conflict. I mean, it's happening. You had a Venezuelan illegal immigrant shoot 2 cops because we don't know who these people are. We don't know where they're coming from. What we do know is many of these people are criminals with criminal histories coming here to escape accountability in their home countries because Biden's going to let them in. They're going to get free stuff. They're going to get taxpayer money. So I'll argue this. If libertarians want to argue for open borders, before we get to that, we have to get to ending the welfare state. We all agree. So let's end the welfare state. No welfare for literally anybody. Then we'll start arguing over whether there can be borders.
What's your take on border security? You just think...
Yeah, no, I believe in
hang out?
privatized borders, just like Hoppe and Rothbard. I'll cite them. And if you say that that's a pie in the sky thing, I think federal suppression of the border is a pie in the sky thing that won't happen. So, much of the borderlands
Why
has
won't
been
it
taken
happen?
by eminent
And
domain.
how do you explain the fact that they've been actually, having a border? There's a border in between us and Canada.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's the impetus of the welfare state. I think there's something to that. But on the southern border, regardless of the composition of the legislature, whether it be Reagan had a semi-amnesty in 85 or whatever it was, and Trump didn't shut it down in his first administration. I see no reason to think that it will ever be shut down.
That's not because
With
it's
a
not
federal
possible.
policy.
It's because there's okay, actually, no. Do you believe that it's because it's not possible, or do you believe it's because the government lacks the will?
Yeah, primarily the latter, which is why I think it's not possible. I mean, we don't have many people in Congress that would fight tooth and nail because of voter blocks. I think that's it. Even on the Republican side,
This is one of the reasons why I'm strongly against illegal immigration. And we absolutely need to set a limit on immigration in general. California is a great example of how we got to where we are today. The simple analogy that I use every single time, it's got a real world analog in California. You live in a house with a roommate. Your roommate invites some guy to sleep on the couch. You say, hey, I don't agree to this. And then you get into an argument. He says, let him just stay here for a little bit. You say, okay, fine. A week later, you guys are like, let's vote on what's for lunch. And you want pizza and they both want wings. And then you're like, well, what the hell? Why is he voting against me? He's a guest. And they're like, well, he lives here too. Then the next day, another guy shows up, sleeps on the recliner, and you're like, I didn't say he could live here. And like, well, we voted, and it's 2 against 1. He's allowed to live here now. This is what happened in California. They allowed a bunch of illegal immigrants in, granted amnesty, created people who had no ties to the community living in the state, and then when the state tried to shut down the welfare state, all of those people that now had connections to family members who were illegal immigrants or did not live in the country, protested it. There was mass protests. There were riots. And then that was the end of California as a Republican state. You led and new citizens. We got 3.5 million new voters, new citizens now granted the right to vote since 2020. And they support Democrats 56%. You let people into your house who don't support your values and want to send money outside of your country. They're going to vote for it. Why would you let someone into your house who wants to take your stuff and sell it to vote for the ability to take your stuff and sell it? That's what's happening in this country right now. Our resources are being gutted and extracted. You look at that video in Boston where there was that black dude trying to go to the community center and the cops blocked him. Why? It was given to illegal immigrants, and he's furious. This is what's happening. The things that you build for your children are being given away because Democrats want open borders, and that will be the end of this country. We are already to a point where young millennials, it was Tyler Hansen. Tyler Hansen, am I getting his name wrong again? Taylor Hansen. Yeah. I always mix up Tyler and Taylor. He was interviewing some people. I retweeted it. He asked these 2 lefties if illegal immigrants should be allowed to vote. They say, yeah, of course. If they live here, they can vote. Well, that's the end of your country, period. That's it. It's over. Because they're going to be like, dude, there's a rich guy who lives in Beverly Hills, got a big mansion, it's $40 million. He's letting anybody come in. I'm going to bring all my friends, we're going to come in, and we're going to vote to take it from him. And he's going to let us do it.
Well, and it raises the need for citizenship and civic participation from as a reward, as a component of voting, right? Like, I guess I don't totally understand your position, in part because, like, I would be happy if the states did more to secure the borders. Under our current administration, they're saying, no, you can't do that, right? But if we're going to have a federal government, which, again, I agree with you, maybe the federal government shouldn't have a monopoly on controlling the border, but I would much rather see our forces, both our military resources and our literal personnel forces at the border securing the country we all are a part of than being like, well, it's cool, just go to Ukraine. That sounds good. I think ultimately we forget that immigration affects how our culture develops over time. And to say it's cool, just show up is not the same thing as maintaining a strong and civic-minded population.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be just clear here, it's not my ideal for it to be kicked back to the states, although I think that would be better than the status quo, especially for places like Texas and Nevada, Arizona. But my ideal is privatizing the borders and allowing individual property owners discretion over who comes into their territory. And there could be like a sponsorship component to that. Like, hey, I assume some of the legal liability for this guy. A lot of the borderlands have been taken by eminent domain. And again, I know this is like a radical thing, but that's my position ultimately in the ideal.
But what about in the practical?
I think kicking it down to the states is a better ideal. And to Tim's point, I think there's nothing about Tim's point that was wrong. But I also think that I have as much of a kindred association to people in California than I do to like people in Mongolia. I say that's the federalist experiment. You let them do that, and you let border states be able to make restrictions of who comes into that state. And we have federalism as a model where people can vote with their feet and go where they think this society will flourish better.
So, I mean, but it sounds like you're just saying national divorce.
I'll say that too, national divorce.
Yeah, like each state should be its own sovereign state and go back to like a non-existent federal government with weak powers.
Yeah, are you an anarchist?
I'm for that too. Yeah, I'm an anarcho-capitalist.
Okay, yeah.
And it all comes out now.
Yeah, but
Well,
if that's the case, then why would you respect a state having the same powers?
I don't respect it, but compared to the status quo, I do, because number one, I think it's constitutional, and number two, I'm a radical decentralist, and that's a better thing to me than allowing Washington, D.C. to control it, because the extension of that argument is, why don't we allow the UN to control it?
Because they're not the United States.
Agreed.
And we have an elected government.
Yeah, and I don't respect Washington, D.C. for the same reasons I don't respect globalists at the UN.
But we elect representatives and then send them to D.C.
Yeah,
so it's a big difference. I mean, the UN's got appointees and they do whatever they want. Congress, the problem is the current state of corruption in this country. The Founding Fathers did a fantastic job of putting together the system. 3 branches of government was brilliant, the way they check each other. You've got effectively a monarchy, you've got a democracy, and you've got a council of elders, all in one form of government. Quite brilliant, actually. The problem now is modern technologies clashing with the system, a population expansion makes it very, very difficult to manage any of this. But I guess the libertarians who are in favor of national divorce and decentralization will likely get their wish, because this system can't exist. And I'm not saying it shouldn't or should. I'm saying literally it can't. It's like looking at someone pouring milk into a gas tank. Yeah, they will not go. And what we're seeing now, let's jump to this next story. We're carrying the conversation. We have this from the Post-Millennial. Biden admin hands out millions of work permits to new illegal immigrants despite 180-day waiting rule. A 6-month waiting rule for asylum seekers applying for work permits was implemented in 1996 by the Immigration and Naturalization Service. But they're just doing it anyway. They're granting amnesty. They've given 3.3 million illegal immigrants work permits. Okay, our economy is in the gutter. People can't afford to eat food. Inflation is through the roof. This is going to crank it up to 11.
So I'm going to say this, and I'm not saying that it's about like murderous stuff. And I don't want people to make this weird thing. But like when the Nazis were clearly going to lose World War II, they decided to turn up the ovens and throw more and kill more Jews. It's almost as if they have the same thing. It's like the Biden administration's like, we're going to lose power, so we just have to shove as many people in as we possibly can.
No, they may be thinking, we are going to lose.
It's not anything.
We need to shatter the country. We need to shatter the country so that we can control the portion that we've cracked off from it.
I think there is a level of that. I mean, the thing about I would include some unrestricted forms of legal immigration, but definitely illegal immigration is about, in my opinion, replacing the population that's here and making a collection of people who feel indebted to you and or as though you are the one who's going to be more likely to, potentially grant them whatever they need. And that's actually kind of abusive in my opinion. The Biden administration, I think you're totally right. I think they are looking down at the final, 6 months of his term and saying, we got to make stuff happen fast. One of the things I had always heard was that Biden would grant mass amnesty in the final months of his administration after the election, just to sort of give the next president a headache to deal with, and to be able to say, well, look at me, I'm more compassionate than the Republicans were. I think this is the kind of thing that should anger average Americans. I always accept the fact that the average American has a lot on their plate. It's extremely difficult to afford anything right now. You know, monitoring our nation's immigration system might not be the top priority, but any time the government has gone after you for your taxes or anything else, you should look at this and say, actually, they don't like me. They like these other people more. They like people who aren't from this country. And for the most part, economically, are probably not invested in our long-term national growth. They're invested in individuals, in their individual security, and also sending money to family members in other countries, which I don't see as a positive thing. The Biden administration was always going to be trying to virtue signal on these issues, and it's always going to come at the cost of the American citizen.
Any kind of policy that is essentially disregarding the law overall.
Laws don't apply to Joe Biden.
They apparently don't apply to anyone that's currently in the administration, and they don't matter to people that aren't in the administration, because they'll just make some stuff up if they want to toss you in jail. So, I mean, the fact that the law has kind of it's frustrating, because it is really, really hard to see it as any other way, and it's not something that's new either. It's not like this is some kind of thing that conservatives have been talking about or just now piping up about. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, conservatives were like, look, the media is against us. And everyone's like, no, they're not, blah, 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 blah. They're not against conservatives. They're not. And it was, the media doesn't have a bias. And then it was like, well, okay, maybe. Now we've got literally the government trying to put the actual leading candidate in jail. So
yeah, they'll print headlines like this, and then the next one will be, "This is proof that no one is above the law."
Unreal.
When it comes to Trump.
Yeah.
And I'm not a Trump fan, but I think that's absolutely ludicrous.
This system can't exist, right? I'm not saying it should or shouldn't. I will repeat that, but it can't.
And the worst,
you can't make a car out of cheese. You just can't do it.
And I don't want to have any kind of like. It's not like I'm happy about this, but the U.S. is the global hegemon. So if the U.S. falls apart, the whole rest of the world is going to get wild. Yeah, wild.
And that's probably why China's been dumping U.S. dollars and buying gold like crazy.
100%. Gold,
financially, to be sure.
Gold and Bitcoin.
Gold is $337 or something like that.
Really?
Yeah, it's $2,300, $2,400 right now an ounce. 6 months ago. Last year, it was under 2,000,
Yeah, 2,328. Wow.
Last year, it was under 2,000, like 1,800, 1,900.
Oof.
What's your take on the work permit situation?
Well, I don't acknowledge that, again, the federal government has any leeway when it comes to regulatory authority over immigration. But at the same time, this is clearly breaking the law. So when it comes to the law and arbitrary dictatorial powers that are akin to like a 17th century emperor, I guess I'll side with the former if I have to pick between those two. But again, it's just clear how arbitrary this government is. It would make a lot of the founders blush when they're talking about condemning the British government, how arbitrary we are now, I think.
Do you think that's the challenge that libertarians have? Like you're saying, ideologically, I don't think that this should happen, but practically, this is the challenge we're facing. I feel like libertarians, and we see this played out on a lot of issues, have high ideals, but then they have to face reality, and sometimes
Absolutely.
It doesn't apply.
That's the libertarian quandary on a lot of things. That's to be sure.
So how do you reconcile with it?
Well, to reconcile it, I tried to dictate in my head what the moral extension to every issue is, and then just take things in a relative sense. I think some things are better than others. I would rather have like a constitutionally limited government that's actually adhered to compared to like, an arbitrary despot, for instance. Although I'm not convinced I think that's kind of a utopian belief that there is a limited government, at least in the U.S. And I think the last decade is very big proof of it.
See, we were having this conversation with my Michael Rechtenwald, and I don't believe he gave us an actual answer or a sufficient one. And then I had the conversation with Michael Malice, and he gave a much more well-thought-out answer, but still one that I found lacking. We were talking about the privatization of police and the monopolization of power and violence. And I was saying that a private police force won't work. Police are, they act as arbiters. They exert authority to enforce law. And then you are brought before a judge and, depending, a jury to figure out the extent of this. Now, the system is broken because there's too many people. There's not enough judges. There's not enough time in the court. No judge wants to deal with this. They're just going, next, I don't care. I don't want to deal with this. So now you've got these bail hearings that they're not really hearings anymore. They just say yes or no. We don't care. You get people in overcrowded jails. System is clearly not working. That being said, the idea of privatizing police literally makes no sense at all. And I've never been given any logical or coherent answer. Michael Rechtenwald's response was, you would just have different police departments and in your area, and you would choose which one to pay for. And I'm like, so what happens when,
jurisdiction?
The jurisdiction can't be answered. So Jim comes to, you've got two towns. You've got Springfield and Shelbyville. Jim from Springfield goes to Shelbyville and punches a guy in the face and then flees. Shelbyville calls their police. The police go to Springfield and say, that guy punched our guy in the face. And he goes, help, police, strangers from the town over, a private company are trying to kidnap me. And then his police confront those police. Michael Malice's response was, mafias negotiate all the time. It's like the mob. And I'm like, and the mob also would go into people's neighborhoods and say, we are the protection racket in this town, pay us or else. And if you don't, they start smashing up all of your stuff until you pay up. So that doesn't make sense. You can, in the scale of government we have now, there is no logical system in which we say different factions of armed, authorized individuals will enforce laws based on how we want them to be in our jurisdiction.
But Tim, it happens all the time today in terms of like insurance disputes. For instance, if you have like State Farm and Allstate and we have dispute, it goes to our insurance providers and they
are people happy with their insurance companies right now?
I don't know, but I don't think they're happy with
no,
the cops either.
They're absolutely not happy.
Cops too, in many cases.
Agreed. Right? And so the issue is this system doesn't work. Let's do another system that doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. I think if we're going to be talking about solutions to the problems we're seeing, there should at least be a sound, logical, here's the map, here's the morality, this works, or it doesn't. But the idea of saying insurance companies negotiate all the time and mafias negotiate all the time, it's like everyone hates their insurance company. Insurance companies deny claims all the time. You're going to call your private police force and say, a guy robbed me, and they're going to say, and you're going to be like, what am I paying you for? And they're going to say, then don't. What are you going to do about it? If you don't pay us, then you've got nothing. And you're going to go, I guess I won't pay you then. And then what? Then you have literally nothing in any circumstance. Now, of course, I love this meme where a guy says, where would we be if we didn't have police after someone robbed you? The meme is like, how could we survive without police? After getting robbed, you need someone to tell you, what am I going to do about it? Right? That's the argument. But there still are circumstances where police do things. And we have problems with quotas. We have problems with cops giving tickets when people didn't do anything wrong. Sure, all that stuff. But most interactions out of hundreds of millions are not negative people have with police. So the issue ultimately comes down to libertarians argue there should be police, just not nationalized, or not the hierarchy of jurisdictions. And it should be voluntary. And then you run into the problem of private companies will try to cut costs at every corner and deny you claims and do their best to make sure you keep paying without them giving you anything. So then you run into the jurisdictional crisis of, I watched a viral video today of city police and sheriffs were getting into a fight over jurisdiction because the sheriff didn't inform the local cops what was going on. Those things happen. But then you have higher branches of government at the state level that oversees all of them to prevent shootouts between two private organizations. So like even in a circumstance where you have private police, it ends with them mandating you pay by force. Like fire departments didn't used to be public. They were private. You bought an emblem, you put it on your house. And then if there's a fire, they'd rush out, see the emblem, they'd put the fire out. No emblem, they don't. And then it became public over time because the monopolization of the system, not because people were forced to do it. Everyone just kind of agreed like, well, yeah, you got to have a fire department. The problem is if my house burns down and I don't pay for the emblem, then your house burns down next because the fire spreads. So it's like, no, we have to have fire and safety and security. I certainly don't agree with taxing everybody 56% or whatever. But yeah, I don't see a reality in which we would allow non-citizens to come into this country, work and do whatever they want, and displace the labor. And I'll put it really simply, actually. Let's cut it all the way down. The roads. Everyone's favorite argument when it comes to libertarians. If me and my buddy put together a road and we build it, and then you start allowing illegal immigrants to come onto the property, and I say stop, and then they're like, deal with it. And I'm like, I got to pay now out of my pocket for security because you are bringing these people onto my road? Now my costs go up because you are violating my rights. So why should I have to deal with that? I like the idea of limited government, but I like the idea of adjudication where I can say, hey, we have an agreement that you don't bring these people in because when they use my roads, there's wear and tear. We pay for it. We maintain it. We allow people to use it within limited reason, but you let people come on. Now it's destroying it. I'm going to ask the court to tell you to stop. That seems to work pretty well, in my opinion.
Yeah. I'll say there's a lot of industries that are much less regulated than roads, and we somehow make do with them very well, like groceries and things like that. In many places, the roads, food markets, in many places, the roads work very well, almost completely privatized, like in Japan, where the company JR, builds out a lot of those roads. And
I think food is more regulated than roads.
You think so?
I'm pretty sure that's true.
And even if it is, a lot of the times governments contract with independent, road builders to build the roads anyways. So you're kind of conceding that, private contractors build these roads anyways.
Right. They're and it's maintained through there's a government inspector who comes in to make sure the road's working. And if it's not working, then people complain and they bring it to their city. The city then has a budget pooled from people's resources.
Do you think they're held more accountable than if it was a private entity?
Yes.
If the roads are looking good?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because we had I grew up with a bunch of these issues with private roads, and they have tolls that were supposed to be temporary to pay for it. They become permanent, and then you're just paying. The city privatized parking. Oh, I love this. I love this. Chicago privatized public streets, and it resulted in everyone getting tickets and getting their cars towed. Just like people started. What are you going to do about it? It's a private company. Private company comes, says, it's our road. We have the rights to parking. You got to pay what we demand or else. And I'm like, wow, why did we do this? Why did we allow private entities to control our roads and then tow my car? And then when I go to the government and say, why was my car towed? They go, we don't handle that. That's a private company. I'm like, yeah, that was a mistake. Then I call the private company and they go, what are you going to do about it? And I said, why did you take my vehicle? And they say, because we control the rights to parking. And I said, you stole my car. And they're like, good luck. You want to go to court? It's a civil violation. You call the cops. They go, hey, look, man, that's civil. That's not criminal. That's a dispute you have over financing. They're the parking authority. Then you go to court. Congratulations, you're going to lose. Yeah, this was really, really fun when we found out all of our parking was privatized. Stupid. Well, let's jump to the next story from the AP. Wisconsin Attorney General files felony charges against attorney's aide who worked for Trump in 2020. Part of me actually kind of finds this very funny because this is Kenneth Cheseborough being charged, Jim Trupis and Mike Roman. I can't speak for Mike Roman, but Kenneth Cheseborough pleaded guilty in Georgia on similar charges and then implicated Trump. And so I'm just like, if you betray someone and then more bad things come your way, don't expect any sympathy from me. This is why the lowest level of hell, was it the ninth?
I think it's the ninth plane of hell.
It's reserved for traitors and the disloyal, and rightly so. So it's funny watching like Jenna Ellis, talk about Trump or whatever, and like she has some critical comments about something. I tweeted facetiously, I hope Trump goes to jail, and then I commented in a video game. I'm like just trolling. And it's kind of a neutral statement because if Trump goes to jail, his polls go up, his donations go up. So it's kind of like, well, yeah, whatever. Literally, we don't want him to go to jail. And then she made some comment like, these people are so dumb. And I'm like, lady, you cried on TV and blamed Trump for everything. These people deserve prison. And I hope nobody backs them up. However, in all seriousness, Wisconsin is now adding to criminal charges of Trump's lawyers. So understand where we are as a country. Joe Biden is granting amnesty to non-citizens, and regardless of your position, maybe you were for open borders. Well, it has to be done through the will of the people and the law. Congress is how we implement these things. Well, here you go. I don't know what comes next. I mean, they're trying to shut down Alex Jones's show. He's got 2 weeks. They're attacking media. They're arresting lawyers. They're trying to imprison the frontrunner for the presidency. I do not see a reality where things get, let's just call it, lighter. I certainly think the actions they're taking are indicative of us gaining ground and winning. When you watch UFC fighters jump up and meet Trump, Aaron Rodgers, everybody's shaking his hand. They love the guy. Trump raising $200 and some odd million in a few days, record breaking.
TikTok account growing to
millions.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Insane.
What is he at now? 5-something million or more. So the death throes of the political establishment will not be pretty. I hope Trump wins because it will still be dark, but the night is always darkest before the dawn. And then we can start repairing and fixing these things, maybe bring this country back from oblivion.
Think about what it's going to be like should Trump win. There's going to be a lot of pushback by people that are currently working for the government. And I'm not sure what that looks like. But things have been crazy, man. You know.
Do you think the American people are tired of these cases? Like all of these cases of them, you know, the ones in Arizona or the ones in Georgia or the one in Wisconsin now. Like, do you think the American voter, the average American voter, is like, this is really making a big difference for me? Or do you think it's just sort of political vendetta?
I don't think the average American voter knows exactly how much lawfare is going on right now. I think they probably know that Trump's in court, and they probably know one or two. Most likely, the New York and the classified documents cases, or in my sense, that those are the ones that they know most about. They might have confused or combined the Stormy Daniels and and also the real estate stuff. Yeah. They might have combined all that as into one thing in their head because it's happening in New York. So if you've got, you know, just a bird's eye view or whatever, checking in every once in a while, it's like, oh, the New York one, oh, the DC one. I don't think they realize how bad things are. And I think the average person, if they actually look into it, I think that they'll be like, yo, that seems messed up. At the very least, they'll be like, I may not be a lawyer, but that seems wrong. You know, I feel like that's the sense people would have.
In every conflict, in every country, most people don't care. Name a conflict in history, people don't care. People care about where's the food coming from. When they wake up, what am I having for breakfast? Revolutions start when food prices are too high, not when politicians are involved in scandals. So right now, the real crisis is political instability combined with a crumbling economy. What they're doing with the border is exacerbating the economic crisis, seemingly intentionally. I think, you know, I look at what the Biden administration is doing as the cartoon where, you know, Goofy or whatever's on the boat and a hole pops and he's, you know, and then he puts his finger in it and another hole pops and he puts his finger in it and then he puts his toe in it. They can't control what's going on. They're trying to maintain their international liberal economic order power and they can't. So they are effectively just breaking the system instead of, you know, I look at it this way. Donald Trump, his plans and policies will probably result in Americans working harder, but having more and having security along with what they have. The Democrat uniparty policy was bomb other countries, establish petrodollar dominance, and then we can keep printing dollars forever, and our economy will be strong because we have guns pointed at everybody. That's not working. It's been faltering for the past 20 or so years, getting worse and worse and worse with Iraq and Afghanistan. And now today with Ukraine, it is failing. I look at it and I'm thinking, Donald Trump's probably got it right. Secure the border, bring our jobs back, start producing things at home because we are not going to maintain the liberal economic order anymore. The United States does not produce enough to maintain its economic standards. If you go the Biden path, the hegemonic power of the United States crumbles. Ukraine lost. It's hilarious how bad they're losing. The Red Sea, all of these things lost. And then you have crumbled infrastructure, no means of starting up your economy again. You go with Trump, you secure the border, you bring factories back, you bring jobs back, you start developing chips. Now, I know Joe Biden also has made moves for the CHIPS Act, Arizona, et cetera. Trump got rid of TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. Start focusing on this country, working to protect its people and finding jobs, improving our culture, educating young people, And then when the liberal economic order collapses, and it will, we will be safe, secure, and producing things that generate value and keep our economy healthy.
Yeah, I'm with you on the importance of the kitchen table issue compared to almost any of this other stuff to the average voter. But I mean, the people that pay attention, I know blue dog Democrats, Hannah Claire, to your point, that like they say, why does this keep happening? Like I don't like Trump, but let's just let it play out. And that's not, the hardcore base necessarily. But, this is a generation that watched James Clapper lie under oath about NSA data collection and watched, Sandy Berger stuff documents from the National Archives down his pants and get off on probation. Like they know, some people know that there's something wrong with
those people. There's like 7 of them. Like, not kidding around. Most people, like, think about man on the street stuff. That's 95% of America.
No, I agree with you on that.
Like,
but there are the remnant that does.
When it comes to the people that are politically aware, yes, there are some, and this audience obviously is more politically aware than the average. YouTube has more politically aware people than the rest of, than other social media sites. That doesn't mean that there are enough to make a difference, because there aren't. Because if there were, they'd have done it, right? Like, I love a lot of libertarian ideas and stuff like that, but the Libertarian Party hasn't done anything. The closest thing they've done is got Donald Trump to look at him and be like, hey, you guys have some ideas that I could work with if you'll vote for me. And then what did they do? They flipped him off because they don't like winning. They like showing off that they don't like the government. That's what they are there for. So
I mean, there's no chance that Ross is going to get off then, or that he'll put libertarians in his cabinet as he elects.
Trump will.
I think
absolutely.
Yeah, I think that Trump would do all those things. There's zero drawback for him to not do them, or to do them. There's no political negativity. He doesn't have to worry about a second term. He doesn't like the intelligence apparatus at all, so he doesn't respect that stuff. He'll be like, if it pisses him off, I'm into it. There's no reason for him to not. Now, I'm not saying it's a guarantee that he will or that he can, but he has done more to make overtures towards libertarians than any actual presidential candidate, save for the man Ron Paul himself. Like, who else has done it that didn't run, that hasn't been running for the libertarians? He's made overtures. Yeah. Look, I love Angela's idea. If you're in a blue state, vote for Chase. Right.
Well, I was just going to say, does that lead you to believe, to grant some credence to Angela and perhaps the Libertarian Party spearheading this thing if that gets consummated, potentially? And I'm not sure it is, to be clear, but I hope so. If
you are a Mises libertarian in a blue state, vote Trump. If you're a woke progressive, I don't care who you vote for.
That's fair.
I want to speculate a little bit.
No, vote Trump either way. If I can convince at least one woke person to vote Trump, I guess, or whatever.
I want to speculate a little bit about which libertarian Trump would put in his cabinet, because I think there are some registered Republicans, but like Thomas Massey is a libertarian, right? Would he be? Is this who we're talking about? I'm curious to know who this libertarian is, because I agree with you. I think Donald Trump would come through, but I want to know who it is.
I think that if the Libertarian Party is smart, they would get Justin Amash or someone like that. Most likely Justin, because he's trying to get into the Senate anyways, right? He's running to go.
Do you know what position you'd want to see him in terms of the cabinet, or like?
I would love to see him. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm not sure what would be best, but I mean, Trump's talking about getting rid of the Department of Education, so I don't care. Like, if you put him in HUD, put him in, I don't care where. It doesn't really matter, because what I want them to do is strangle the life out of wherever they're working, right? I want them to.
But who is the target here in terms of like restricting their progress?
If Donald Trump actually would get rid of the Department of Education, like you said, then that would mean that one's off the table, because that one's just going to be gone. So great, thumbs up.
Check that off the list.
I'm absolutely.
Most skeptical of that one.
I mean, look, we can be skeptical all day, but again, these are the best options ever offered to libertarians in history. These are the most.
This is the issue I have with. I think libertarians and communists have one thing in common: they believe in a utopian reality that can't exist.
Yeah.
And
they're dreamers.
And I often hear that's not real libertarianism.
Look,
I do. It's like, hey, a massive private company took over our parking, and we already got a super chat. Like Hal Gailey saying that's a corporation. It's the state who. No. It's a private entity that takes the cars away, and there is no government enforcement against them. A private tow truck comes and takes my car, and then I say, how do I stop that from happening? And they say, shut up.
Well, if they breach the contract, you can take them to court.
Oh, wow. I got the money for that.
I mean, it's the same follies happen regardless of, the solution, I think.
Agreed. So at least there's a constitution within government and limits and oversight, which grants me some protection from nefarious private actors.
But nothing's more utopian than saying that that's consistently applied, and we see it in the Trump case. No, you didn't. You didn't, Tim. But I'm just saying that there's problems with, from the utopian perspective, by thinking like limited government, is going to continually limit itself because the words on the parchment are pure ideas.
The issue is this. The point I'm bringing up is Donald Trump, no new wars. Donald Trump timeline for withdrawing our troops in the Middle East. Donald Trump tried to get our troops out of Syria. He was lied to, and they maintained our troop presence in there. Donald Trump also made mistakes. Firing 59 Tomahawk missiles into Syria was stupid. They targeted an airport, and Syria had forewarning that it was going to happen, so I don't think there was any injuries, which was a weird, stupid thing. They say Donald Trump increased drone strikes. Well, yeah, as you're withdrawing your troop presence and you want to maintain security, you're going to use drones, and that's a good short-term answer to pulling our troops out. Donald Trump negotiating peace agreements in the Middle East. Donald Trump negotiating peace with North Korea. And then I talk to libertarians, and they're booing and screaming and smashing the wall saying Trump bad. And I'm like, dude, if you want to live in a utopia where an empire built over 100 years is dismantled in 2 seconds, go play Civilization, enter in a console command that disables empire and dissolves one of your enemy nations. If you want to live in the real world, you have to recognize that the best thing we've gotten in 40 years in terms of ending war has been Donald Trump. And there are libertarians who are like, no, boo. And I'm like, okay, then live in your utopia and win nothing. And that's what we get. Nothing. So that's why I'm like, Chase Oliver, that was hilarious. The Libertarian Party has done so well with under Angela with the rise of the Mises Caucus. But this one was just said, I guess I could ask for nothing more because this means the Mises libertarians are probably voting for Trump. So I'll take it.
You're a Mises guy, right?
Hardcore, yeah.
Okay, so can you explain what happened with your presidential pick this year?
Oh, man.
Oh, boy.
Alas.
Oh, wait, with the presidential pick, or are you asking what happened to get Chase Oliver?
Yeah, how did we get to Chase Oliver?
Yeah, I'll try to make it as succinct as possible. A lot of people were on board with Dave Smith. For a while, Dave Smith was openly flirting on running. And he's since, said, I apologize for bowing out. It's a family decision. I'm going to respect that about him. But Mises took it within their own gumption to explore some other candidates. The who's who gamut of the biggest libertarians in the country were talked to, I know, by Michael Heiss, the chair of the Mises Caucus. And eventually Michael Rechtenwald agreed to do this. He was one of the prominent libertarians that agreed to do this. He's an expert on DEI, ESG, et cetera. I think he's been here talking to you guys. And it was basically old guarders generally supporting Chase. That's very simplistic. There were other candidates involved, and the hardcore Mises people supporting Rechtenwald. It went through 8 rounds, I believe, and the third place guy, Mike Termott, made a deal with Chase Oliver to be his vice president and essentially throw his endorsement behind him. It moved enough of the room.
To be fair, I mean, Rechtenwald, I don't understand why he was the choice. Why was he the Mises choice?
Many alternatives were talked to and turned it down, and he was considered one of the most prominent ones that were considered for it. He's an expert in several fields. He's brilliant on wokeness, DEI, ESG, stuff like that.
Can you maybe tell me why Chase Oliver was appealing to the old guard of libertarians? Because it's interesting to me that, I know it was kind of contentious this year, but you reelected Angela, the Mises chair, which is fascinating. But then still you're saying, ultimately there were enough people supporting non-Mises candidates to pick this guy. He's definitely not someone I would pick, but obviously I'm not a member of the party. I don't know what the internal working's like.
No, I can totally understand that confusion. It's a few things. One of it is that the presidential race ended very late in the night on the last Sunday night when many Mises people had gone home. It looked like attrition hurt us more than the opponents that we kind of waged this.
So actual Mises delegates didn't vote?
Some of them didn't because some of them went home. They had plane tickets that had, were going home.
God.
We tried to tell people stay till Monday. We kept saying it. And then another reason is that Angela actually has, you wouldn't know it from Twitter all the time, but she has a broad amount of appeal from a lot of what we call friendlies or people that are kind of indisposed. So I can understand the confusion behind that. The difference there.
Yeah, because I definitely feel like the things that I've heard about the Libertarian Party is definitely this embracing of the Mises Caucus, but it is interesting that then you have this guy who I don't think is very representational of that segment of the party. But it does speak to the fact that Libertarian as a party actually has to bridge a greater divide ideologically than maybe other Republicans or Green Party or whatever else.
The Libertarians nominated the pro-vaccine mandate guy.
I don't know if he ever explicitly said that, but he did push COVID propaganda at the height of the COVID regime.
He said he opposes the government mandating it, but he's for businesses being allowed to mandate. And anybody who's paying attention would know that anybody who has a memory, the mandates were actually private. So it was actually by choice. Many venues, many businesses were choosing vaccine mandates. There were health guidelines that were never enforced. You couldn't sue the government for it. The private businesses would just say, no, we require it because we choose to. So I actually don't think that should be allowed. So that's why I'm not libertarian. I think there should be public agreements as to if you're going to occupy space that is shared by people and provide a service, you can't arbitrarily ban people and create things like, and this is exactly why. We don't want to live in a world where people form coalitions and then decide, we're all private entities and we hereby agree, libertarians, anybody who supports Mises, anybody who supports Rothbard, you cannot buy burgers from our restaurants, you cannot use our trains, you cannot use our buses. I'm like, no, that's going to create conflict and violence. We should not allow arbitrary distinctions like that. It should be, you can kick anybody out if they're causing a disturbance, if they're violent, if they're refusing to pay, call police, we'll figure it out. But the idea that we allowed private entities to mandate a medical procedure, and it was private, it was all private.
Well, a lot of it was forced by the hand of government, let's be clear, or caused in lieu of the government propaganda being pushed, and then those businesses adapted to that propaganda. A lot of it does have its root in the state and Fauci and the NIH.
Private music venues is a really great example. We're choosing the bands. And it wasn't because the states were forcing them to do it. So when Chase says, I don't think the government should mandate it, but private businesses can, I'm like, okay, then New York locks down. Because what happens is Antifa goes around, smashes windows and says, why aren't you mandating vaccines? And then every business says, we'll do whatever you say.
Also, you'll have people saying, if you don't have a mandate, then you're going to be in an actionable position. I can sue you if I get sick. And as soon as that comes on the table, everyone locks down.
But it's that is still a function of the state, the fear that there will be action. But you take a look at cultural forces that I think that we want to restrict. Colbert going on his show and doing segments called The Vaccine, mocking and belittling, and you ended up with private actors choosing to lock down. So I say no, you can't mandate medical procedures these are violations. But libertarians. I feel that many of them are very much the same as communists in that, and I do agree with a lot of the actual intelligent, well-read libertarians. The Ron Paul libertarians tend to get it more correctly, but the other libertarians who nominate people like Chase I am completely okay with oppression, suppression, and violence so long as it comes from private actors, and that's it. It's like, okay, well, I'm not okay with that. I don't think we should allow private entities to abuse and control people. When you have three big companies in one area, and then they all start, locking people out in some way, this is what we have government going with antitrust and start breaking these things up to prevent them from doing these things, suppressing, oppressing, and overcharging and manipulating people. There we go. Problem solved.
I mean, we
figured it all out.
It
happens sometimes in this.
That's the problem with libertarian. I love libertarianism as a philosophy or as an idea, but it runs into reality, and essentially, this is the same ideas that the framers of the Constitution struggled with. They said things like if men were angels, then government would be unnecessary, and that's a true thing. The point was, look, we consider government a necessary evil, and so that was that was very foundational to the U.S. But the problem is you've got a situation where the tension now is between people that think that the government is people that think the government that we have, which is the largest government in human history, they think that it doesn't have enough power and it doesn't have enough reach. So I love libertarian ideas, but we got a long way to go before we start to get towards libertarian ideas.
I think the libertarian ideas of like sound currency and ending foreign wars are good ideas, but I think the general, absolute privatization makes literally no sense. I accept that when you decentralize a system and you go into private markets, you have less corruption, but the coalescing of power happens rapidly, and then you end up with a different kind of government. So the benefit to decentralizing is that you get a period of competition, which improves things, and then you end up with a monopoly again in the end because power coalesces, regardless of whether it's government or not. Like I said, fire departments didn't used to be public, they were private, but then eventually ubiquity turned them public.
But the monopolies are being built actively by the state regulatory apparatuses.
How's that?
Because they grant trade privileges to certain companies. They don't even allow, for instance, competitors to, the big pharma companies to come to market. Sometimes it takes years and years and years, and there's 20-year patents on many of the drugs to come to market. It's why you see certain pharma giants just consolidate all this power, and there's only, 5 or 6 of them that we can name, maybe. The same thing happens in other industries, in telecommunications.
To be fair,
and
when it comes to like pharma and stuff like that, I understand it's real popular to beat up on pharma, but it's not like, doing the things that pharmaceutical companies do is not cost intensive. It's not like it's something that you can just, I'm going to start up a pharmaceutical company to make generics. I mean, it takes major investment. So
this is a really good point brought up by Hal Gailey in Super Chat saying, you've already argued it's not your choice to ban guns in venues for your events because your hand is forced. You argue the opposite on vax mandates. No, that's literally my argument. Private entities choose to do the vax mandates. That's literally the point. So I've long said, I believe the Second Amendment. You want to have a gun. If you want to come to an event that, we're having it, like, I don't care if you have your gun, that's fine. And if I choose to stand in front of a crowd of people and someone tries to hurt me, that's living life. I walk around all day, every day. People recognize me. This is the world we live in. However, can't do it. And it's not because of the government. Government doesn't force us. It's because you can't get insurance, you can't get a bank loan, and you can't get private security. That's why. So what happens is, private business, this is the problem with Chase. This is why we need a government action that says you cannot require vaccines and medical treatment for public accommodation. Because what happens is, and this is literally what happens, insurance company for the business says, hey, look, there's a pandemic going on. We don't want to take the risk that someone files a lawsuit against you. We don't know what's going to happen, but we don't want to assume that risk. So we want you to require people to get vaccinated during this pandemic, and if you don't, we'll drop you. The business says, if we don't have insurance, we will shut down overnight if someone slips and falls. So they do it. And so this is how it goes. Private security, insurance say, if you allow guns into your venue, we will not provide you a service. If we don't have insurance, the bank calls our mortgage and shuts the building down.
But there's other private security services that do allow it, and
no,
private security plays out a lot of different places.
We have not found any private security that would allow guns into a show with several high-profile actors in a small room. They just say, "Are you kidding? How can we even provide security if you're going to have 60 people in here that are armed?" And I'm like, so then you don't want to do it? And they're like, we won't do it. Then our insurance company says, you have no security for your events, we won't insure the event. Then our bank says, if you don't have insurance, then we're not going to keep this loan open.
In the entire U.S., you don't think such a security service exists that would do that?
Sure.
I could be wrong. I'm just asking you.
No, for sure. Yeah, somewhere. Not that we've found in this area, but even then, it's regardless of that, insurance companies won't allow it. And so if we want to buy a building that costs $1 million and we don't have $1 million because we want to run a business, we get a loan from the bank. The bank says, okay, but we want the building insured because if you don't have insurance and it burns down, we're out the money. And I say, deal. Then the insurance company says, don't bring guns in. You bring guns in and then there's going to be a bunch of problems. We got to pay for it. We don't want to pay for it. So if you want insurance from us, you want the loan, these are the rules. If I was a billionaire, I'd snap my fingers, buy the building in cash and wouldn't have to worry about it. And then one day, someone, I don't know, farts next to a blow dryer or something, a fire starts, and then the building burns down and now you have nothing. So it's incredibly difficult to navigate a system of private entities that are all intertwined with each other. That's why I think it is good that we come together and say, okay, we recognize insurance is something you need. We recognize, how about we do this? We pass a law saying no private entity can deny you service because you're expressing your Second Amendment right. That'd be fantastic. West Virginia, pass a law saying insurance companies, security companies, and any business cannot deny you service based on your allowing people to express their constitutional rights. And then you're good. But that's an act of government coming in and forcing business to insure companies that allow people to have guns.
Yeah. And I think that you're only in a free society to the extent that you can do what you want on your property.
Most people don't care about
hurting
freedom.
Someone else.
The problem with the Libertarian Party, honestly, at the end of the day, is most people don't actually care about freedom. They care about their own being able to do the things they want to do, and they don't care about if you can do the things you want to do. They don't give a crap. In fact, if the things you want to do mess with their day, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. Like if it messes with their coffee, pass a law.
I just think at some point when the government steps in to do that, it starts a precedent by which many more arbitrary precedents will then be passed.
Like, little late to start precedents.
That's an argument. That's an argument of culture, not an argument of law.
In some cases, yes, but in some cases it's law. Like if the state starts to do that with private property, they've restricted private property in other cases, citing that precedent.
That's only an argument of culture, not an argument of law. We have laws to say like you shouldn't force. We've talked about this with gender affirming care. We call those child sex changes, by the way. And the left thinks that they have an inverted view. They're hypocrites who don't understand what they're talking about because they say my body, my choice, but then they're pro-vaccine mandate, but also pro-choice. It makes no sense. But if you look at the right, you ask someone on the right, should the government be able to mandate vaccines? They say no. Okay, good. Should the government be able to mandate child sex changes? Say absolutely not. If a parent tried to seek a sex change for their child, should the government intervene? They say yes, absolutely. That is a function of law. It doesn't mean that if someone tried to seek an alternative cancer therapy, the government should intervene and stop the parents. When we say somebody thinks it's medical care to give their kid drugs and hormones and surgery, we say no, and the government should stop them from doing it. But then you have someone who says, okay, a family wants to seek an alternative treatment for their kid's disease outside of big pharma. Should the government intervene and stop them? We say, no, of course not. We should let them choose that. So why is there a limit? Why should we have the government intervene in the issue of child sex changes and not intervene when someone's making a medical choice outside of the confines of corporate medicine? It's because we have a moral line where we recognize, well, parents may want to try experimental or alternate medicines, and they may have a reason to try that. But we also recognize that child sex changes are extremely detrimental. We don't accept that. The left, it's inverted. The left says, no, the government should not intervene. In fact, the left's version is if the parents try to stop the kid from getting a sex change, the government should intervene and arrest the parents and take the kid away. So when it comes to issues of law, it's culture matters more. And I was mentioning this earlier in a segment. Wade Stotts, who has this great segment about how the Constitution is dead, argues that when you begin to write down your laws is when things are getting bad. You don't need to write things down if everyone's doing the right thing. You write them down when people begin doing the bad thing, and you need to show them stop doing this. And so that's where we're getting to that point. If we said it should be illegal for an insurance company to deny you because your customers or you express your constitutional rights, I say okay. If then they said, aha, but now we have a precedent, the government can make mandates on businesses. Private insurance companies should now have to mandate people who love setting fires. I say, yeah, no, that's ridiculous. We have a moral line. We don't accept that. We accept that people have constitutional rights and should be allowed to express them. People do not have a right to play with fire in a building. So then you can't do that. But if you have a weak culture, government will do whatever it wants, regardless of what your rules and laws are. And that's where we're currently at.
Yeah, Breitbart was right when he said politics is downstream from culture. So.
Absolutely. Let's jump to this segment. We have this from Republican voters against Trump. New billboards are live in Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin featuring Republican voters against Trump. I'm a former Trump voter. I won't vote for a convicted felon. Now, I highlighted this and said, this is all pre-planned. You can't get billboards this fast. Now, on Twitter, you don't get the full context in there, but a lot of people said, not true. I can send a digital file and it instantly is uploaded to a digital billboard. Let's break this down for you guys. You have these billboards that are now live, and we're talking about 5 days after, not even a full week after Donald Trump, and including a weekend. So we have like 3 working business days to get 4 people, designed billboards, uploaded, ready to go, sold, etc. It is literally physically possible, but it is extremely improbable. That's my point. When I said you can't get them done this fast, if the word came out that Trump was convicted, and I told instantly, I said to my graphic design team, we need billboard designs for former Trump voters who are saying they won't vote for convicted felons. Start setting it up. We'll find people. You then have to find the people who have sworn this statement or have agreed to use their likeness. They have to sign the agreements and the contracts. You don't, maybe don't use the contracts at all. You say, okay, we're just going to do it. We'll figure it out later. Sure. Then I have to contact my broker, figure out what billboards are available for sale, figure out the total price point, negotiate the price point, and then buy them. Likely not happening in 3 business days. I know because we've spent millions on billboards across the country over the past couple of years. It doesn't happen. Is it physically possible? Yes. Here's what likely happened. Before the convictions even came out, this organization likely already had pre-purchased billboard space, likely already had people lined up with these statements, and already had everything pre-planned. Then when the verdict dropped, they called the broker and said, turn the billboards on. When
they do polls, all I have to do is get someone's name that says that I won't vote, and then they can put whoever's picture. It doesn't matter. They have a name that matches a quote. Doesn't matter if the person's the same or not. So they just take people that they polled and throw it.
It's likely these people are who they say they are, and it's likely they've sworn these statements. But that means, look, if you want me to believe that within 5 days so the day Trump's found guilty, they're running the phones and saying, get me people who will swear the statement. You expect me to believe they found 4 people, designed the billboards, got it all set up in 3 business days? I'm not going to believe it. Sorry.
Well, and the PAC behind it, the Republican Accountability PAC, already has a vendetta. If you're looking at their website, which I just pulled up, they're saying we're Republicans and conservatives who hate what Donald Trump has done to the Republican Party. Like, I bet all of these people post for photos and were willing to say, like, I'm a former Trump voter and I'm not voting for him. And then they were like, why? Can you say it's because they're a convicted felon? Like, they probably checked a number of reasons why they weren't voting for Trump.
I'd imagine this campaign, the photos they got, was in the works a month before. They knew the possibility existed. They pre-planned the whole thing.
Yeah, there's no way this was organic, and I bet you, Tim, that they had a completely different set for if he wasn't convicted for their messaging.
Probably with the same people, though. They're
Probably
like,
with the
we
same
were former
people.
Trump voters and we're not voting for him. Insert whatever reason you want. Why?
They would have written the jury was corrupted and terrified of retaliation, and we won't. They already remember when they claimed that Trump was intimidating the jurors. They would say Trump was only acquitted because he intimidated the jurors. I will not vote for a man who would cheat a criminal trial, or whatever. That's it. They made it up.
And again, it's the Republican Accountability PAC, meaning that these are other Republicans. It's interesting that this is like how weird this segment of the party, and I don't think it's the majority is. They are like, they're so fearful of Donald Trump that even in a moment where you could say, hey, this trial was really bad, like he deserves at the very minimum an appeal, they're like, nope, don't vote for that guy.
You know what I love, though? The Democrat messaging on like prison reform and stuff is just totally blowing up right now.
I know.
Because there's a bunch of woke people who are really pissed off about this, and they're talking smack. They're being like, we live in a country that has 25% of the world's prison population, and we're actively working for prison abolition, and now you're running billboards attacking a man for being a felon when we've literally been fighting for the rights of convicted felons for the past, several decades or whatever. I have to imagine if the Democrats' position is that we should grant felons rights and all of these things, then attacking someone for being a felon seems kind of hypocritical.
This is what I think is happening a lot for Democrats or people who identify under the umbrella of Democrats right now. You're completely right. This idea that they have been like, our criminal justice is wrong and too many people convicted, and now they have to be like, I think I'm on Donald Trump's side. Must be a headache for them. It's hard for them to reconcile. Or again, that video from was it Philadelphia Pride? We have the Pride marchers clashing with not the FBI, with the like no pride until we're done with this genocide. Like Palestine rally. I mean, it is interesting how many things in this election the Democrats are having to reconcile on. I mean, we're talking about this a little with libertarians. There are ideological issues that, because the party spans sort of a wide bridge, they have to reconcile on. But the Democrats are going to look at themselves and say, we were against the way the criminal justice system operates, but now they're telling us that actually in this case it was all right. Like, which is it? It's either conform to the cognitive dissonance or wake up.
I mean, I want to hope that there is a significant portion of the Democrat voter base that is looking around and saying, wow, all of these things that we were told by our party are just not panning out. I don't know that there is that segment or how big that segment is. I'm relying on independents and people that are not blinded by ideology. I hope that there's enough that see that the way that the left, even the way that they approach, campaigning and stuff. It's not about policy. It's all about attack. It's all about, they're the bigots. They're the bad guys. They're going to kill people. They're going to do blah, 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 blah. There's no content. And I hope that the American people can see, hey, look, when we actually discuss policy, we can have policies that do help, to some degree. I know you disagree, but that's fine. But the average person is going to consider, look, I want to see the government doing things that is good, that are good for the American people, and we don't see it. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the result in November, but there's no guarantee.
Yeah, we talk about policy the least during an election year. I feel like at that point, it's just get on sides and get behind these personalities. But I do think to a certain extent, the concept of a single issue voter becomes really relevant to me here. It's like, it's easy for me to say on certain issues, like I would never vote for someone who's on the opposite side of this issue. This is how I feel about it.
First Amendment, that's simple.
Right. And I think there probably are people on the left side of the political spectrum that are saying, like, this is my biggest issue.
Yeah, they're like, he's a racist or no.
Or I'm thinking the opposite. Like, I believe that the criminal justice system is corrupt and targets too many people. And they're having to confront these trials and say, like, if I really believe that, it's not all of them, but I think there are some people who will say, like, I don't know if I can align myself here. Just like that should be the purpose of elections, right? Having to look your party in the face and say, are you actually supporting things that I support in, or do I need to move somewhere else? Yeah. Instead, I think we get a lot of like, don't talk about the policies so that we can be like, you should wear our letter and wear our jersey and come to our rallies. And that's the opposite of what the voter should be.
And it is clear
really discerning right now.
This election is definitely a referendum by either side on both of them, right? So like everyone that is not on the conservative side hates Joe Biden and vice versa. And there's such a vanishingly small amount of people that could be persuaded.
I think this portion of Republicans is a subsection that's getting smaller and smaller. You see it more and more as it goes on. The Mar-a-Lago raid, I think that kicked a lot of it off. A lot of like the contentious debates in the primary. I mean, when Nikki Haley is coming out and actually trying to get in Trump's good graces, it could mean she's just angling for a cabinet position, but that tells me something when even Nikki Haley is not like doubling down on some of this stuff.
It's interesting. I think that this is I just don't like these political stunts anymore, right? Like I wish you could ask all of these people, I'm a former Trump voter and I'm not voting for convicted felon. Why? Like, you were already again, I think this PAC was already aware of who you were. What was the actual thing that turned you away from Trump? Because that could be a productive conversation. But instead, it's like, actually, we've all decided for this, we all coincidentally decided this was the one thing just in time to have our faces on a billboard. Like, I don't think so,
See, but like, these people are probably neocons.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the Lincoln Project people. You know what I mean?
They're all they're all related by blood to Bill Kristol.
That's right.
And one is named Kevin Wanker. I'm just going to put that out there.
I feel bad for Kevin Wanker. He spent his whole life being a wanker.
Poor guy.
Well, it's a respected family, maybe, in the town that he's from.
There's a family that has the last name Hitler. And they refuse to change their name, and they issue cards called like greetings from the Hitlers. Mm-hmm. And they were just like, we've had this name forever, and like we're not going to let people take our name from us.
It's fascinating.
It is. They're taking.
But a lot of people who had that last name changed their names.
And people who were named Adolf, right? They changed their name.
Yeah. And his surviving family members almost all did that, and I think agreed not to have children. I think of his actual extended family.
Well,
I'm pretty sure that's true.
Let's grab one last segment. We have this from the Post Millennial. Black Panthers founding member backs Trump for president. Hilliard said the former president has always been a friend of African Americans. On Monday, writer and TikToker Carol Mitchell sat down with Black Panthers founding member David Hilliard to discuss his support for Trump. The 82-year-old former revolutionary said he wanted to see the former president back in charge, calling him an ally of the black population. So, okay, here you go.
Welcome to the random site. I want you to meet someone who knew Donald Trump, and he's going to tell you about Donald Trump in his own words.
My name is David Hilliard, founding member of the Black Panther Party. I knew Trump when Trump was a college student in New York.
Wow.
And he supported the Black Panther Party.
What kind of person do you think Donald Trump is?
Trump is a person who's a decent man, and he supported the Black Panther Party. Someone who gave us money.
Based.
And,
he is the first black president. Bill Clinton is not.
He gave us money.
I told you. When you say a decent guy, I told you. Uh-oh.
That's Face the Nation.
Yeah. Hold on.
Yeah. I was one of two black. Trump?
Yes.
Trump's a friend of African Americans. And I knew Trump from the 1960s in New York, where he comes from. And he's a friend to African Americans.
Oh, and now when you say a friend to African American, what do you mean by friend to African American?
I mean, he's not a racist. He's not a racist, fascist white man. He supported black people. Owned every brownstone in a place called Harlem, New York.
Oh, wow. Okay. Now, do you remember the time that Trump supported Jesse Jackson?
No, but I remember when he supported the Black Panther Party.
Incredible. And how did he support the Black Panther Party?
With his money.
Oh, for real? My goodness.
He gave us money.
So, in your opinion, Trump has always been, now that he has these 34 counts of being a felon, Trump has always been part of the black community, or familiarized at least with the black community.
That's exactly right.
Disavow.
Trump was a friend to people
so much to unpack
of African American descent, and he owned all of Harlem.
Wow, that's amazing. So, in your opinion, sir, your valued opinion, why do you think they put all these charges on Trump, and they're afraid of him to be president?
Because Trump likes Africans in America. He likes black folks. That's one. I think that Trump is qualified and a very decent approach to having somebody representing America. Trump
I agree with you. And I think Trump would be able to get us off this government thing and get us to making our own money. You know, because he knows how to make money. He knows how to lose money. And so he would be the perfect person to help us get our own again, right?
And Trump's a friend of African Americans. He's always been a friend of black people. That's how I know Trump.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. And what is your name, sir?
My name is David Hilliard, founding member of the Black Panther Party.
Oh, my God. Well, that's amazing. You're a well-known figure in the Bay Area. So we thank you for taking a moment out of your...
Yo, that is wild. Trump gave the Panthers money back in the day.
That's going to get fact-checked.
Yeah, I hope
Let's see what happens with this one.
I need a little more context.
I mean, how do you fact-check this? This is David Hilliard saying he did it. What more fact-checking is there? Like, well, prove it. It's like, dude, he said he did.
What, and Fannie Willis' dad, who was also a Black Panther, is going to come out and be like, that never happened. Trump's the enemy.
The fact check is this really David Hilliard? You know what I mean? It's like it's some TikTok video. But assuming that's true, I imagine this is going to earn Trump some points.
I imagine it'd be. I don't know how you verify it, but I mean it'd be funny.
I think it's
so funny. It would be. If
there's FEC paper trails, I'd think for stuff like this.
But I think it'd be funny if the Black Panther Party came out and was divided over this issue. We have this founding member who says Trump's always been a friend, and then the other members are like, no, we hate that guy. Like, this could split them. Fascinating.
Wow, wouldn't it be funnier if they were all just like, yo, we're on the same.
I'm gonna stand by. Fannie Willis's dad, who testified during the trial during the hearing over her conflict of interest case, was a Black Panther. I'm pretty sure he's not gonna be like, you know what? If David Hilliard said it, I support Trump. I could be wrong, but I just don't.
This
think
could be
so.
their Chase Oliver.
Oh my gosh.
This could be.
I don't know. I think Trump supporters are going to be cheering for this.
Yeah. I mean, look, Trump supporters just like Trump, they like anyone that supports Trump.
Yep.
Which is, I mean, to be honest with you, considering the situation really boils down to, you know, left Twix or right Twix. You know, if you're gonna pick one, just be like, hey, yeah, okay.
Well, it's just like he's so calm about it, right? He's like, no, he's always been a friend, like that guy. I knew him as a college student. Like, again, I would like maybe some fact checking, but it is also interesting that this is something he feels comfortable saying publicly.
I don't know if we need any fact checking. If this guy is saying he knew Trump and Trump was nice to him and they're friends and he supports him, that's all that matters.
Well, I'm not saying discount it. I'm just saying, like,
I just don't know who this guy is.
It should be able to be verifiable. I'm not saying discount his take.
It's fascinating either way, though, because again, like there is a attitude, I think, especially among progressives, that, you know, minorities are in the bag. They're voters. They'll vote for us no matter what. And I just don't think that's true anymore. And I don't think it ever should have been true. And, you know, Black Panthers kind of a extremist organization. So it's interesting that one of their, you know, founding members, if that's who he is, you know, would come out and say, like, no, I've always liked him. Because I think, again, it goes against the narrative that actually, you know, what did Joe Biden say? You're not black if you're not voting for me. I mean,
for me,
ruptures
black.
the narrative, yeah.
What a crazy time.
It's wild to me that there's just tons of people in the black community that just keep voting Democrat no matter what. And it's mostly older black folk. So the polls are showing that under 49 years old, it's like 30+% Trump. You look at a lot of these artists, you look at a lot of these man in the street videos.
Yeah.
Younger people in the black community are straight up just like Trump.
That is hilarious, and I love it. Like watching the young rappers that are all pro-Trump. That is some funny stuff, man, and I'm here for it.
There's a bunch of aren't there like a bunch of prominent rappers that have backed Trump now?
There's like I don't know their names, but I've seen a bunch of different people. I don't know how famous they are, if they're like actual big time or if they're like
we should just make up a rumor that like
niche.
Someone name a rapper and we'll just say he supports Trump. Just there you go.
Lil Wayne.
Doesn't he actually support Trump?
Look, I don't know a lot of rappers, so I can't say for sure, but maybe.
I'm looking that up. I thought that he actually did, didn't he? Yeah. Lil Wayne supports Trump. This is from 2020. Yeah, Lil Wayne endorsed Donald Trump.
Amazing.
So maybe you just knew that subconsciously.
Maybe the only rappers I know are the ones who support Trump.
It doesn't look
photo up too.
Lil Wayne skateboards too, I'm pretty sure.
Lil Wayne's pretty cool if I understand correctly.
Yeah, he said. I mean, and he also talked about his.
Oh, he got
which is
pardoned
really
by Trump. See, there you go.
Maybe that's why I know about this.
Yeah. See,
what about Tyga?
I have no idea who that is.
He dated Kylie Jenner.
Do you guys think that Trump is going to actually see significant improvements in the vote count among black voters? Because they always say that he will, but then he never. But then no one ever does.
I don't know. I don't know. I have a hard time. I still have a hard time trusting the voter rolls and how things are going to go. Even though I know it's broken up. There's like a bunch of different. You know, every state does their own voter roll and stuff, but it's frustrating. So.
What do you think's gonna happen?
I haven't studied these demographics whatsoever. I mean, I feel confident he's going to win, whether they have the capital to go ahead.
How do you think he'll do among middle-aged white libertarian men? I
think he'll do way better than last cycle. The Ross Ulbricht thing is enticing, especially.
It's kind of wild to me that I can talk to libertarians and be like, Donald Trump didn't start any wars, and they go, yeah, well, you know, and Ross Ulbricht, I'll vote for him now.
So, you know, this really bothers me, and I don't get this twisted. It's not like I don't think it would be good to get Ross freed, but Ross gets a cheer, right? And when Donald Trump says, I'll get rid of the Department of Education, it's kind of like secondary. What's going to have more effect on America?
Bro, you're talking about a political party that nominated Chase Outlaw.
I'm aware.
I think it's more skepticism toward that because that's a Republican talking point a lot, and I mean, I think Ted Cruz tweets that routinely. Same with the IRS. It just never happens.
What if Trump went up there and said, if you vote for me, I'm going to send strongly worded letters to every department, and that's it.
I mean, he'd probably be...
I'd be like, well, if you send 2, then you've got my vote. Because 1's not enough, apparently. We've tried 1. It's time for 2. Yeah, you know, I was talking about this earlier. I'm like, how come no one does anything? Where's a single Republican in any one of these states to go after any one of these people? for the crimes they have committed.
The biggest thing that they've done, they've gone after their own people. Went after the speaker, got the speaker changed, and what was the other? Oh, they managed to get Mayorkas in front of them, and they managed to get Fauci in front of them too.
Yeah.
It was fun when they yelled at Fauci and then he denied everything, and then that was over.
Yep.
And everyone forgot. All right, we're going to go to Super Chats. If you haven't already, would you kindly smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share this with your friends, head over to timcast.com, click join us. Become a member by going to timcast.com, clicking join us to support the show, because this show is only possible thanks to viewers like you. As a member, you will get access to the uncensored member call-in show coming up in about 25 minutes, where you as a member get to call in and talk to us and our guest. You've got to sign up at timcast.com if you'd like to do that. But let's read. Clint Torres is back. He says, howdy, people. Howdy, Clint. Tim Jake, 78. SCOTUS ruled 9-0 in favor of the NRA that New York regulators violated the First Amendment by coercing regulated businesses to end relationships with the NRA. The Sotomayor written opinion is worth your time to read. Interesting. And she is a leftist. Token Black Guy says, howdy, people. Tim, I nominate you for governor of West Virginia. Get this ish on track for us. Hannah Claire, girl, your hair was on fire yesterday.
Thanks, man. That was just its natural state.
I would never want to be a governor or a politician, but I'm getting more and more angry. If I was the governor of West Virginia, I would order a raid on the CBP facility at 340. I would get all state law enforcement apparatus. We would get warrants. We'd get judges to sign off. And we would start ripping through every single CBP computer and communications. We'd have SWAT, sheriff, everybody storming that facility. Massive CBP facility over on 340. Because these people are trafficking children. And I want to know who they are. And if you're going to operate in my state, that's how we do it. But I'm not the governor. No, the governor here just wants to play ball with the feds because they don't want to get, just too much work.
Is that in Loudoun?
The CBP facility?
Yeah.
Loudoun is not in West Virginia.
Okay.
Yeah. Loudoun County is in Virginia. The Customs and Border Protection facility in West Virginia is in Jefferson County, just off 340. Not too far away, but 20 minutes. And I want to know what they're doing. So it must be legally. All got to be done legally. But we go to a judge. We say, here's our preliminary investigation. We've got media reports corroborating a preponderance of evidence that they're trafficking children. We've got statements from the head of the CBP union admitting they are trafficking children. If they want to operate in this state, then we should go in there and seize computers and hard drives and phones, start going through emails and communications pertaining to all of this. And we could start light. We could force them to hand over the communications and access. And if they don't, then we send in the sheriff and the SWAT police. All right. Charlie says, Tim, listening since COVID, financial strain from being laid off has put my family in a bind. We're behind on the car and utilities, and $750 would be a godsend in setting us back on track. Venmo CK Bevs. Good luck, sir. Good luck to you. Eric Blackwood says, I am a pagan and follow the philosophy of Stoicism. I wanted to thank you for staying true to yourself and talking about Stoicism and its virtues without converting to the Christianity like many others on our political side. Yeah, this is funny. It's like it's a weird reality where conservatives call me an atheist, which I'm not, and I would say I was an atheist from like 14 years old to 18 years old, maybe. And I don't even know if atheist is the right word. Agnostic, probably better. I didn't know what was going on. But I've not been an atheist for a very long time in any stretch of the imagination, but I'm certainly not a Christian. And will never just, there's no reality where I become a Christian. I grew up Catholic, went through that all, and I believe in God, but I don't believe in Christianity. And, so Stoicism is also great. But shout out Eric Blackwood. For anybody who's a Christian, I got no beef. I think Christianity is largely important to this nation. And I saw this really interesting graph that showed countries' motivations, and there are three: guilt, shame, and fear. Very few countries operate on fear of self-harm, or a fear of harm from government. It's mostly shame or guilt. Western nations are guilt-based, and Eastern nations are shame-based. And that makes sense when you look at like Japan versus the United States. In the United States, but it is interesting. I think guilt is so much better a motivator than shame is.
It's funny to think of Japan as like shame-based and then think of like all the octopus stuff they do and stuff like that. Like,
but they are shame-based. That's why they have seppuku.
It's weird. Yes,
Yeah.
It's true. It's just weird.
Whereas for us, we're like, did I do something wrong? Like, did I wrong someone in some way? You feel guilty for doing things that are wrong. I feel like there's a better motivator.
I've lived there for a time, Japan for a small time, and there, like, the shame is like it doesn't extend just to you; it extends to your whole family and lineage, right? So
yeah,
yeah,
crazy.
I love Japan. It's so cool.
I agree.
Yeah, Japan's based.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Let's go. Token Black Guy says Ian is going to come back with graphene grafted to his skeletal structure.
Is that what he's doing in Florida?
Well, he's not in Florida. He's in Canada.
Oh.
He was sent to a Canadian military research facility where they've infused graphene into his skeleton against his will. It's the 10th attempt they made, actually.
The 10th? Yeah.
Yeah, they've tried it 10 times, 9 times before Ian. Ian was the 10th experiment to fuse graphene to a skeleton, and it's only because Ian has a healing factor that allows him to regenerate his cells so rapidly that they were able to succeed in grafting the graphene to his skeleton.
He's become Hippie X, right?
And they call him Hippie X. That's right.
Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. And the strange thing now is that he has graphene claws that come out of his hands. Only nerds know the reference.
Well, I'm
Actually,
so
no,
glad
geeks, sorry.
he's evolving.
Nerd is science, geeks are culture.
Oh, that's the difference.
Yeah, nerds are people who know math, and geeks are people who are obsessed with a cultural thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you're into comic books, you're a geek.
It's adamantium.
Adamantium.
So you know which one I am
graphene.
right now.
No, we're talking about graphene.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's go. We'll read some more super chats. We're gonna have a really fun members only show today, because it's a holiday. But we're not gonna talk about which holiday because it's not family friendly, or YouTube friendly, I guess. But on the Hippie X, yeah. So go to timcast.com, click join us because that members call-in show is gonna be fun. It's gonna be very, very fun. Today is a holiday, and you want to know which one? You got to be a member and watch the show. All right, let's go. Stoned Mason says $50 super chat was lumered. Please read. I'm a based musician. New song Exodus Between Us is on SoundCloud. Wrote it about COVID-19 and finding Jesus. Thanks. Serge, did you know that our cables are COVID cables? If you look at the cables and the cameras, they'll say COVID on them. I think it means like co-video or something. But I was like looking at the camera and it says COVID, and I was like, well, like, why do these cables say COVID on them? Whatever. What have we here? Wrath of Paul says, I saw a CNN video of an illegal immigrant saying he would vote Trump if he could. It would be hilarious if the illegal immigrants get amnesty and voting rights, but then end up voting for Trump.
It's not worth the gamble for me. I'll just have American citizens vote.
No, but what if they all vote for Trump and then Trump is like, you know, because you voted for me, we're deporting the communists. The illegal immigrants are now legal, and the communists, you got to go. Would you accept that?
No.
You'd let the communists stay.
I just think we should deport people who came here illegally and who didn't abide by the system. And
Communists aren't abiding by the
don't think
system.
we should be distracted by the fact that they are saying, oh, well, actually, I like Trump, so please let me stay. Like, no.
Do you know communism, if you're a communist, you're not protected by the 1964 Civil Rights Act? This is why I say law doesn't matter.
It's in the verbiage, right?
It literally says that communists are excluded from protections. Wild. Yeah, shout out to Josie, the redheaded libertarian. She did a big thing on it. Yeah. And it was like, if you identify as a communist or a part of a communist organization, you are not protected under the 1964 Civil Rights Act.
That's
think crazy.
I think part of the reason is because they were explicitly anti-American and illiberal.
Oh, yeah. Man, what those were the days, I guess.
I mean, people understood the philosophies behind these movements and these ideas, I think.
Yep. Polly Puree says, Ian, come back. I think Ian's back next week. I think. Serge is nodding at me. Ian's gallivanting about Miami with loose women and musical instruments. I actually don't know if he's gallivanting with loose women. It just sounded funny to say, so... I don't know if there's like some woman hanging out with Ian and she's like disrespected now and she's angry. I was like, what?
Gallivanting's fun.
Gallivanting?
I like gallivanting.
Do you think Ian went to the beach? I bet he did.
I'm sure he's been to the beach, yes. I'm sure.
Oh, what do we have here? Tony says, Tim or whoever, check out the song Puppet on the Throne by Phoenix Knight. You won't regret it. Well, okay. Sean Stewart says, an evil man will burn his nation to the ground just to rule over the ashes. Uh-huh. That's what we're getting. Let's go. What do we have here? Grim Reaper says, look up MCPS. It's an active 501c3 acting as a police force enforcing Sharia law in New York City. PS 501c3 can't become law enforcement, and they're impersonating NYPD. Yeah, I remember seeing these stories. You remember these? They have badges, and they claim to be just like community enforcement for their own neighborhoods, and they agree to adhere to it. And they have it's like Muslim police. Have you seen that?
What's your take on this?
I don't know what this is even a reference to.
So there are Islamists in New York that made badges and formed an organization where they go around policing people based on their religious values. So it's like religious police.
Virtue police.
But it's fine, though, right? Because they're private.
No, if they violate people's rights, I don't believe in the privatization of a Holocaust, for instance. Like that's kind of a straw man argument. I don't believe in hurting anyone. The state is just the biggest purveyor of hurt in the world.
All right. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that, actually. Like I don't know if I see a distinction between corporations and state. That's the thing. You know what I mean?
Like we were talking distinction.
Yeah, like we were talking about
their tentacles intertwined all the time, right? The state and corporation.
Yeah, because I forgot who we were talking to. I think it was Rechtenwald or somebody, and I mentioned the East India Trading Company was a non-governmental entity, but it was oppressive. It had slaves, and then the point was made, but they worked in collusion with the British government.
Correct. Right.
And I'm like, well, then it's all just basically the coalescing of power.
Yeah.
You know? So like when you have the FDA being run by the guy who previously ran a major pharmaceutical company, it's all one big power entity. It doesn't matter if it's a state or a corporation.
A lot of times the same people that are lobbying for industry, a lot of times they're responsible for writing policy.
When did you become a libertarian? Sorry, Phil.
2004, and I have the dumbest story for it. It's not the same story anyone else fell into libertarianism for, but I randomly, during a college research project, stumbled upon the works of Murray Rothbard when doing an economic study. It was the history of money and banking in the U.S. From there, I went down a rabbit hole, discovered Ron Paul, Bad and Eric, some others. It's not a fun story.
Rothbard snuck up behind him.
Usually Rothbard is like the red
and then
pill
put
at
his
the
hands
end.
on his head and did a psychic attack and warped his mind. And then he became a libertarian.
Oh, wow.
He actually, yeah, that was the lie. That was the actual story.
Yeah, that's the real story. It's much cooler when you tell people it was that, you know.
Exactly.
Rothbard's lurking around converting young college students into libertarians.
Through psychic means. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, whatever works.
All right. Noor Alahi just posted a super chat saying, the only way Ian is getting adamantium is if he is goody two-shoes, don't drink, don't smoke, or what did he do? Subtle innuendos follow. There must be something inside. I don't understand. It's graphene, not adamantium. It's not atom, it's adamant, like diamond, right? Adamantium.
It's my fault for making an X-Men reference. It's all my fault. So
actually,
I think those were lyrics to a song. Don't drink, don't smoke. What do you do? Don't drink, don't smoke. I think so.
Oh. No, I think someone chatted making a reference to Ian as Weapon X, getting graphene infused into a skeleton, and then we just rolled with the Weapon X reference.
You kids and your culture and your music.
Kids. The Weapon X story is from like the 60s or something, isn't it?
I think. I mean, X-Men started in the 60s. It might have been a little bit deeper, but...
Polly Pure says, Tim, you should make a less sweet version of the Starbucks bottled Frappuccino and sell it in convenience stores. I would love to. It's so incredibly difficult to do. It's like nightmarishly difficult. Yeah. What do we have here? Josh Tabalt says, grant them amnesty, double their taxes, and they can't vote for 20 years or 20 years after their 18th birthday. 20 years after their 18th birthday. And double taxes, I guess. I don't know that works either. The issue I have is cultural degradation and social, I don't know, discohesion. Is that a word? The issue is that when you have a mass influx of non-citizens, then your social order breaks. It just implodes.
Yep.
Unless people want to integrate. And if they don't want to integrate, then social order breaks down. Then you get war and conflict. So when you look at like, it's wild. If you look at places like Dearborn, Michigan, they have really high rates of female genital mutilation. Mm-hmm. That's what happens when you get enclaves.
They had to pass laws about it. Initially, there was a whole like trans lobby that came out and was like, you can't do this. And it was like, oh, we're not doing this for reasons you think we're doing this. Yeah. Which was just a whack intersection of American current culture.
People end up fighting each other because you're like, that group of people is mutilating children. And then they're like, it's our culture. You have to respect it. We live here. And then it's like, they won't. And then people fight each other.
Like you talk about the left, like the left's coalition. It really is based on, Republicans are evil. So you get very, very significantly different ideologies that are all coalescing on the left under the we don't like Donald Trump or we don't like Republicans or whatever. And you end up with, the Palestinian protesters fighting with the Pride Parade, which we just saw like a couple days ago or whatever. That kind of stuff is going to become more and more common as the left continues to fragment.
Mike Alvarez says we should start calling Biden yet to be convicted felon to counteract when the corporate media calls DJT a convicted felon. Thank you and the crew for everything you guys do. Look, Republicans, conservatives, stop living in Democrat world. Trump's not a convicted felon. They're just saying it. Call Joe Biden whatever you want. Call him Pedo Peter. Trump was not convicted in any sane and logical court. CNN said the court case was nonsense. So it's just like a group of Democrats went, we all agree that Trump's a felon. And then you're like, oh, now they're calling him a felon. What? They've been calling him all sorts of names. It doesn't matter. And they're being like, yeah, but a court decided. Shut up. We have a court right here now. We're going to vote in the court of Timcast. Is Joe Biden a pedo?
Yes.
That's one.
I don't have enough evidence. I need to see the case, but probably.
Probably. So do you abstain or?
I'm going to abstain.
Abstain?
Traitor.
I say based on Ashley Biden's diary where she says she was molested and took showers with her dad, I think the preponderance of evidence indicates a yes answer.
At least as far as a grand jury is concerned, I would say yes.
Yes. Okay. That's it. A court has found Joe Biden is a pedophile. I didn't say it was a legal court of law. It was the Timcast courtroom.
I think we are a legal court of law. I think
people should recognize the authority that we're building here.
Mm-hmm. So there was a story where what Hunter, I think, called Joe Pedo Pete. Mm-hmm. That it is. So his own son calls him a pedophile. And then Ashley Biden's diary, which is confirmed to be real, says that she thinks she was molested, sexualized, and she showered with her dad and it wasn't appropriate.
It's always the videos of like when they're doing swearing-ins for Congress and the mom's moving their daughters away from him. That's what gets me. I'm like, oh, there is something wrong. And
where he's sniffing kids and touching them?
Knows it. Yeah.
But the fact that his own son, according to those, let me see if I can find that.
Did he really say that?
Yeah, he called him Pedo Pete. That was like his name for him in his phone.
Yep. It's creepy.
Yeah, it's really creepy.
If you like, if you could get the American people to like kind of really listen to the Biden family stories and internalize them.
Well, we didn't talk about it today, but they did opening statements for Hunter Biden's gun possession charge. And one of the things, so there's a bunch of people who are going to testify, but one of them is going to be Beau Biden's widow, who he had an affair with, broke up his own marriage after his brother died. And apparently one of the things she might have to talk about is the fact that she got hooked on crack cocaine while dating Hunter Biden. Like, yeah, this family has issues.
Daily Caller, I'm not going to show any of it, but Pedo Pete, massive 4chan hack of Hunter Biden's explicit text, images, videos, rocks the internet. Well, it's Daily Caller.
Ironic, too, considering some of the pictures that came out from that guy for him to say that about his father.
I mean, just hilarious. Just call Biden Pedo Pete. It was reported in the news that that's what Hunter called him, I guess. Mm-hmm. So, there you go.
Really?
What is this? Says they hacked his iCloud account. Several videos show Biden walking on the beach. I mean, there's videos and photos of him. You know what I mean?
They brought just at the like Hannah Claire was saying the opening statements today. They brought out the laptop. Mm-hmm. The laptop that didn't exist and blah 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 blah. All this BS that the government fed to everybody. They brought it out. It's full of all the stuff that it's been full of. All of the same stuff, and I'm sure a lot of it will be put on to and as held up as exhibit for the state. We'll see what happens. Probably nothing, but
remember they were saying it wasn't real. What a time!
Yeah. Oh, it's
wild.
Like I said, yeah. if like all of the people, the 51 guys that signed the statement that it was likely Russian, blah blah blah, they should all lose their clearance because they all still have it. I'm sure they should all lose their clearance, and possibly they should be brought up on charges because they lied about like espionage in an election, and it was fine. They definitely affected the results, and the federal government is not supposed to have an opinion, right? Like all the people that are going to be out there, well, they were private citizens. No, the federal government is not supposed to have an opinion, and if members of the security, the intel community are putting their stamp of approval on something, that that signature comes with authority. You can't deny that fact. So the idea that the government didn't put their finger on the scale with that alone, never mind any of the other stuff, the things that are questionable or whatever, I'm not getting into any of it. But to imagine that when they signed that paper saying that this was probably Russian propaganda, when they did that, they impacted the election 100%. They should all be charged.
Saddle effing Tramp says, dude, Dave needs to look at the USDA regulations on raising chickens for consumption. He would probably have a stroke if he learned the regulations for organic.
Fair enough.
Yeah, food regulations are insane.
What about consumer electronics? So there's other industries that are less regulated than roads, but I'll take that into consideration.
I think the surrogacy industry is very underregulated.
Yeah. Yeah, roads are regulated. All right. Isaac Gorski says, July 4th is coming. It's time we get the word out. The Independence Day 2024. We declare our independence from the corrupt federal bureaucracy. Spread the word. I don't know what that means, though. We're going to vote for Trump, I guess, and then try and restore a non-corrupt or weed out the corruption. I will say this, though. We are not having a show on the 4th or the 5th of July.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, we talked about, we were contemplating, like, the 4th of July, obviously, there's no show because we're going to be out lighting fireworks and hanging out. Ain't nobody's going to come hang out July 5th because most of the celebrations are going to be Friday night when people are off work and stuff. And I was just like, I don't think we're going to be able to actually get a show so that looks like 4-day weekend. So
That'd be fun. We can all go be patriots and touch grass and throw fireworks and whatever.
yeah, we're legal.
Yes.
West Virginia's got fireworks stores all year round everywhere. It's hilarious.
It's so fun. There's one near us that like right after 4th of July does a 50% discount for like several months, but then right around New Year's ends it because a lot of people light fireworks at New Year's.
It's just funny that, most places they have the pop-up fireworks stores, but out here they're permanent. Mm-hmm. As like people are going there all the time. It's like,
yeah,
you need fireworks in West Virginia.
Do you get big old shells and stuff?
Oh, you got 100 acres of just open field. Come on.
Have to.
Yeah, it's almost it's a law. I'm pretty sure it's a law here. West Virginia mandates that you get fireworks, but you got to be careful. You really do because it was dry last 4th of July, and the fireworks they come down and they started grass fires, and so we were laughing. Like, it wasn't really serious. We just stomped them out. But I was like, hey, if you don't pay attention, it goes real slow. And it just slowly starts spreading out. Did you guys see that there's a viral video where a dude lights a firecracker off on his lawn and the lawn's dry and it just burns all the lawns in like the street?
That's wild.
And they're screaming and trying to put the fire out and they're like, oh crap.
It's like not as festive.
It started with a little tiny fire. They like lit a fire. It was like a Roman candle. And then it lit the grass on fire. And they didn't try to stomp it out fast enough because they thought it wasn't serious. And then it started spreading and then they couldn't stop it. And then it just started spreading to all the grass.
Did you grow up lighting fireworks off by yourself?
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge fan from a boy. We do it in Nashville where I live all the time. They have the tents that pop up yearly. It's not year-round like you've seen, but I love them. I love the shells. My favorite one is the Excalibur. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Hal Gailey says, you're confusing private with corporate. The state is who limits liability and nixes competition. Private equals competitive and voluntary. Pluralistic police is already everywhere. Give the people and their money the teeth so cops don't cater to them. What does that mean? How am I confusing private and corporate? Now, massive multinational corporate, conglomerate is probably a better word. Conglomerate is the word, not corporate, that we're looking for. So when I said before that I don't see a distinction between corporations and the state, what I meant to say was conglomerates and the state. Massive multinational corporations. As for private, so if I hire a private police force of my own volition, I can have them go do whatever I want them to. It doesn't make sense. I suppose if laws are mandated by the will of the masses through an electoral process and adjudicated by judges, which are public, but police themselves are private, that might be able to work because then the police who do wrong are held accountable by the judicial system. So the police themselves as enforcer of the law can only enforce laws that are on the book, but they're private. In which case, you wouldn't hire a police force that didn't know what the laws were. You'd hire a police force that did, and you'd get a better police force. But then I don't know how that would work if, like, someone didn't pay for cops. So, like, what happens if a guy goes and burns a house down, and the dude whose house got burned down didn't pay for police? Would the police be like, well, we're not going to stop the arsonist? They'd still have to. And so what happens then is, like with the mafia, they show up to the guy's house who doesn't pay, and they say, we have no choice but to stop this guy who's attacking you because of the risks of other people. They're mad at us. You got to pay. And then the mafia comes with baseball bats and smashes the display case in the front of the store. And they say, time to pay up your protection money. That's how it works. And then they expand and grow, and then eventually you got a public police
I think
force
that's
again.
what police let happen in the summer of 2020.
Right, but it doesn't
all
matter
over
if they're
the country.
private or not. Like a private police department wouldn't be able to stop the summer of 2020 either. What would they have done? Mass rioting? They'd be like, what can we do about it?
Mass protection.
How?
And they're accountable to the constituent that's buying it.
How would 1,000 cops stop 10,000 rioters?
I mean,
They wouldn't.
I don't know. If you're doing hypotheticals and by the numbers, I don't know. There's a lot of hypotheticals where we could say 30 people in this place could stop 1,000 depending on the location, but this is all like, just pie in the sky stuff.
So New York, Manhattan Island is 2.5 million people. There's only like 30 to 40K cops in all of New York City in all 5 boroughs. They don't have the police force to deal with even small scale rioting. It's not possible. They don't have the money for it. So people can already hire private security, I guess. All right, everybody, we're going to head over to that members only show. It is a holiday, so you definitely want to hang out for this one. It's going to be fun. Smash that like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Head over to timcast.com, click join us, because the members only call-in show will be starting in a couple minutes on the front page. You can follow me at Timcast on X and Instagram. You can follow at Timcast IRL everywhere, including rumble.com/TimcastIRL. Dave, do you want to shout anything out?
Yeah, just if you're interested, take a look at my book, Thomas Paine, A Lifetime of Radicalism at davebenner.com. Also follow me at dbenner83 on Twitter. Thank you.
I am Phil That Remains on Twix. I'm Phil That Remains Official on Instagram. The band is All That Remains. You can catch us on tour this summer with Megadeth and Mudvayne on the Destroy All Enemies tour. Our new single is called Divine. You can check it out on Apple Music, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, and Deezer. I got it right. Don't forget, the Left Lanes for Crime. Hannah Claire.
Well, it's been fun being here. I'm glad you could join us in the studio today. I'm Hannah Claire Brimmel. I'm a writer for SCNR.com, that's Scanner News. I'm really happy to be here every night with you guys. Thank you for everything you do. Follow Scanner's work at Timcast News on Twitter and Instagram. Follow me on Instagram at Hannah Claire B, and follow me on Twitter at Hannah Claire B. Bye, Serge.
See you, Anna Claire. Happy June 4th, y'all. See you later.
We'll see you all over at timcast.com in about a minute. Thanks for hanging out.